Hey humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. So first thing I want to say is last episode with Elisa, we were so far apart from each other. She was in Johannesburg, I was in New York. There was all sorts of noise and craziness, and her voice is very quiet and my voice is rather loud. And I'm still learning all this editing and sound quality things as I go. A one-woman show here. So I know for some of you it was hard to hear in some places and kind of crazy loud in other places. I want you to know I'm working on it. I actually am taking a little lesson from a friend this weekend, and I'm really excited about it. And he's going to show me how to make all those issues go away. So I'm learning as I go, and I hope you're patient with me. And once I get that all squared away, I will repost that episode. I figured out how to do it within the program that I work with, so that's good. It's a learning curve. Everything is a learning curve, and you just kind of, I guess, got to go for it and hope for the best. So I really appreciate everybody hanging in there with me as I go through my growing pains. That being said, for all of you listening, the sound of my voice out there in Etherland, if you would take a minute to go to whichever place you listen to the podcast through, whether it's iTunes, especially iTunes, because I know that's like a real big thing for them, but any of the places you do your listening device, your podcast apping through, go and rate and review Hey Human. It would be fantastic. I've been getting some really great reviews, and it's wonderful. But the more I get, the further up in the metrics the podcast goes on iTunes and in the various podcast apps, and it just helps get the word out. So that would be fantastic. Usual stuff, social medias, Hey Human Podcast. You can find me all over there. You can always email me, susan@heyhumanpodcast.com. And if you would wish to support Hey Human Podcast, you can do so two ways. One, by going to heyhumanpodcast.com and clicking on the support button and donating anything you'd like to support Hey Human. Or if you shop at Amazon, you can go to the Amazon portal on the homepage of heyhumanpodcast.com and shop on Amazon, and that also helps support Hey Human if you do so through that portal. So those are the ways you can help Hey Human. So episode 91 is with Alex Robkin, and Alex is a family member of mine, and he's a lovely guy. He's a whip smart mathematics major, speaks Japanese, the coolest person. He is also an addict and has been through 3 tours of rehab, and he has, as of this very day, he has been clean and sober for almost 8 months. He is up to 239 days as of today. So that's super exciting, and I'm really, really proud of him. I'm also honored that he agreed to be on the show, and he spoke really candidly that's redundant. And he spoke candidly about his addiction, and he spoke candidly about his process of getting clean and the struggles therein and the triumphs. If any of you are struggling with addiction, this is definitely a must listen to know that it's possible to get to the other side. I will also say, for anyone who is struggling with a loved one or a friend, or maybe even somebody at work, or somebody that is using, don't give up on them. They can get clean. It can happen. I've seen it happen, obviously. And sometimes I think when a person loses faith in themselves, it feels really good to know that somebody else has faith in them for them. You know what I mean? It's like lifting the person up who's gotten to the point where they don't know how to lift themselves up. And yes, sometimes it's very difficult. Addiction can be a very, very dark place, and it can take everyone down with it, everyone around the addict. And that's a real thing. But there's, as Alex said, there's hope still. There's still hope that things will get better. And I hope that this episode speaks to all of you listening for empathy for those going through addiction and for an understanding of what it does to the families and friends and loved ones of those around the person who is going through the addiction and sobriety and just everything. It's a good episode, I think. I'm just really proud of him. So I'm going to put links, of course, on heyhumanpodcast.com about places where you can reach out to if you need help, or maybe if you know somebody that needs help. There's also the Al-Anon, the adult stuff for people who grew up in alcoholic homes or houses with drugs, and maybe you don't have an issue yourself, but you grew up in that family, and it still certainly creates its challenges as you grow up and face your own life. Even if you're not addictive, it still gives you things to work on, and work toward. I speak from experience. So anyway, much love to everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And here we go. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
How are you?
I am fabulous.
Thanks for being on Hey Human.
My pleasure.
So, you and I are related. Can I say that? We don't have to say that.
Well, you said it, so I guess so.
Yeah, but I can always record over it. If
That's
you don't
fine.
want to be known as being related to weird old me. We can start over. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
Thanks for being on Hey Human.
My pleasure still.
We need a producer to edit that out. I'm the producer. I'll edit that out.
Great.
Anyway, I appreciate the fact that you are on the show. Thank you. What's that?
All the pen. There's a lot of ink stains on this floor.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
I noticed there was some cat stain too, like throw up hairball stain.
Yeah.
Lots of cats. Anyway, so I asked if you would be on the show to talk about addiction, and you said yes. I was super stoked. So here we are. So you are sober currently, and hopefully forever.
That's
we'll see
the
how
plan.
it goes one day at a time.
One day at a time, right?
Yeah. So how old were you when you started using, and what was your drug of choice?
Well, the first time I ever used any drug was when I drank alcohol in 8th grade English class. It's totally unplanned. It's just my friend smuggled some from his parents, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And it's like, wow, this feels really, really awesome. Kind of was like a mellow progression from there. Just kind of did the usual, like, smoking pot, drinking in high school kind of thing. Then I turned into a lot of smoking pot.
Well, did you go immediately from 8th grade drinking to starting smoking pot, or did you wait till
it was
you were
like
in
a
high
year. I waited till I was
school?
in high school.
High school's 9th grade?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you have anything in your brain like, this isn't... I was thinking back to when I first drank alcohol. I was 14, which I don't really remember what grade that is.
Same time, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's like a normal... In class, maybe not as normal.
Yeah.
That's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, I had to give a presentation after that, too. Got an A. It's a point of pride for me in my life, I guess, in a twisted sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it took the edge off so you could? You felt like you could? You know, that liquid courage thing? And that kind of made you go, I want to do this more? Or?
It felt very comfortable, but I don't think I didn't feel like it was helping me, I guess. I just thought it felt good, you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I could tell I wasn't like quite as in control as I usually was, but that kind of was cool in like a dangerous sort of way, like living on the edge, teenager style, I don't know.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself having been a shy person or pretty outgoing, or?
I was shy in certain situations and very not shy in other situations. Like, in the classroom setting, I've always been very talkative, and if I'm with people I know pretty well, then I don't think I'm not very shy. But if I'm in like a situation where it's like a social thing where I don't know a lot about people and there's a lot of people around me, then I tend to not talk very much.
Yeah.
but definitely a little bit of anxiety, I think, was part of what made it feel so good, because that was definitely relieved a lot.
After you did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went from drinking casually to, were you drinking every day or anything, or just not really?
I drank it's like impossible to get when you're like 14, so sure. I was just socially. Once in like every several months or whatever. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like just the normal teenage kind of thing. Yeah. So what was, pot was your first drug?
Yeah. Well, I consider alcohol just as much a drug as pot. It's just, a cultural thing.
Yeah, totally. But I agree with you on that, actually.
Yeah. But, alcohol, or weed was my next one. And, again, a similar experience, just like this feels awesome in a totally different way, but still, like, that, like, overwhelming, pleasurable sensation, like, kind of, like, removed from real-world problems and my everyday kind of psychology, I guess.
Yeah. Were you getting stoned a lot?
Not at first, but, like, over time, like, say 10th grade, picked up a little bit, and then by 11th grade it was like 5 times a week at least kind of thing.
Yeah. What was it, an escapism thing, or just to take the edge off of thing, or?
It was just, or
did you know at the time?
I definitely didn't know at the time. I just did it because I enjoyed it and my friends were doing it too. And it didn't really have any, like, to me, detrimental effects on, like, my school or
you still got good grades and stuff.
I got like the same grades as I got before. As always in high school, I didn't like do homework either before or after that, so like I got pretty good grades, but not like amazing grades.
Yeah, okay. That's hilarious. All right, so do you think if your friends hadn't really been into it, do you think you still would have gotten into it a little bit on your own, or not so much? I think a lot of times it's our friends that are the influence.
But I think
which is such a cliche, I know, but I think that is true.
I think also it brought us together, like, it's kind of like a chicken or the egg kind of thing, like, were we friends because we like to smoke a lot of pot, or do we smoke a lot of pot because we were friends, like, like, you seek out people with similar interests. I like smoking weed, so I hung out with other people that like smoking weed. Like, I had non-stoner friends too, but it just was a different kind of area, I guess. So I think... there's stoners everywhere, so probably still.
Totally. Did you, let's see if I can throw this up on something. I feel like I'm getting, just so it doesn't, because we're both bouncing up and down on this carpet there. That'll help a lot. Edit that out, producer. Oh, wait, that's me. Okay. So, well, it's always interesting to me. I look back on when I got stoned in high school, and, trying to remember, for me it was escapism for sure, for stress and things like that, but I think part of it too was I found the people who got stoned far more interesting than the people that didn't. I probably wasn't looking that hard maybe, but
no, totally, like, there's a certain like mystique about it that really appealed to my teenage self, I think, like, like, I was really into music and counterculture, and like weed was very representative of that, you know. So like I felt like it kind of like, made me cooler, like really like emphasized that part of my personality that like, I wanted to show to the world, I guess.
Right, the artsy self.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is definitely a part of that culture, I think. I don't know if it is as much anymore, but it certainly was at one time. I guess it always will be that.
Yeah.
It's inescapable. Oh, were you feeling weird about it, like with your family or anything, or did you just kind of keep it on the down low, or?
I was relatively good about keeping it on the down low. Like, my mom, I think, was like slightly worried about it, but didn't really. Like, she knew a lot more than my dad did.
Why do you think that is?
Because I knew she wouldn't try and stop me.
So you didn't hide it as much?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And in high school, me and my dad like butted heads all the times about like everything.
Sure.
So I knew that was not going to work out.
Was that also a chicken and the egg thing? Do you think it was because you were doing drugs that you had a more defensive, or do you think you just were? It's that regular growing pains?
I think it's just the regular growing pains. He was just always the more strict parent than my mom.
Yeah.
I think it's mostly just being a teenager,
Sure. Yeah. I understand. I think part of the thing about... I can't speak for all kids, obviously, just my own personality. I know that I think clashing with parents is because you are such an individual, and it's got to be hard to be a parent, having not been one. But I do believe that parents are supposed to not be your friend, but be, it's a weird sort of utilitarian, or not utilitarian. What's the word I'm looking for? What is the word I'm looking for? That's like where they rule all.
Authoritarian?
Authoritarian. Yeah. Thank you. I knew it was a Tarian. It's like an authoritarian, dictatorship thing with parents, and they're not supposed to be your friend. But at the same time, I think as a teenager, it feels a lot out of control, and sometimes you just need someone to hear you, and if it's hard,
I think as a teenager, you don't really understand that there's some things that like you only really know once you get to a certain age.
Yeah.
And that once you get to that certain age, it's just like obvious and everyone of that age knows it. So you're like, oh, I know better. I'm going to rebel against my parents. Like, well, no, they know what's the better thing to do in this situation.
Sure.
Like, you just don't have the experience. It's like hard to rely on other people's life experience, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then there's that old saying that, if somebody else tells you versus if your parents tell you, you're going to listen to the other person more likely, even if they said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And that's just part of it, I guess. Birds push their young out of the nest right at the beginning, don't they?
I think they regurgitate some worms for them
they
first
do.
or something.
They do. They definitely do. So, how long did you smoke pot before you moved to the next step?
I mean, I smoked pot till the very end.
Oh,
but,
you did? Yeah.
I mean, not so much like when I last relapsed. I mean, I still smoke some pot. Like, pot is just, like, ubiquitous. Like, so hard to... If you're doing other drugs, it's so hard to say no to pot because it's, like, the most harmless drug, so...
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean,
when did you start smoking? Because you started smoking, too, right?
I started smoking when I was 19.
Oh, late. Yeah. Why so late? That's crazy.
It was, like, a weird thing where, like, I had some stress going on in my life, and, like, I thought that it would help, and... I don't know why beyond that.
Yeah.
It just stuck though.
Yeah. Well, it's meant to stick.
Yeah.
It's kind of its thing.
But it sucks so much at first, like if you just like stop while it still sucks, it's so much better, but I kept pushing through. I mean, that was another thing where I thought it looked super cool and like made you cooler. Like I think subconsciously I really believed that, even though if like anybody asked me that, I would say, no, that's stupid. Like, because logically I knew that was stupid, but it's like emotionally it's like smoking cigarettes is awesome. It looks so cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, like throughout high school, I experimented with other drugs too. Like I did like mushrooms every once in a while. I did ecstasy a couple times. Senior year, I did like cocaine a couple times. But again, limited by like supply and, I wasn't like that. Like it was fun, but like I still had some sense of like control at that time.
Meaning you weren't that into it
Yeah, I mean, like, I like to smoke weed and I like to go to parties with my friends, but I wasn't, like, trying to, like, do drugs all the time. It was just like, oh, like, we're bored, let's go do mushrooms or whatever.
Right. Sure.
But it definitely started some bad habits, I think, that got worse when I went to college and made it really difficult to, like, be successful there.
What do you think? I mean, because you're a smart kid. You are very smart, obviously. And here you got to go to the university and you're in classes and stuff. Did you, before the first time so when did you take heroin for the first time?
When I was 22.
So you were already in college.
I was dropped out of college already at that point.
Okay, so you dropped out first.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the thing that sort of made the college situation nosedive? Was that more stress related or drug related?
It wasn't really. I mean, it was both, and also just bad habits. Like in high school, I didn't really like study that much. I knew my teachers a lot better, so I could like schmooze with them a little bit more to grease the wheels and make it so they gave me a good grade despite like missing class all the time. In college, you can't do that. If you miss a class, you're just fucked.
Yeah.
So, like, it was, like, first 2 years, like, were okay. Then I broke up with my girlfriend at the time. It's like, oh, I'm free. Time to just, like, party really hard now. And had some friends that were, like, doing, like, ecstasy. And drinking heavily like every night, and I kind of fell into that crowd. And I never went to my classes anymore, so I failed 2 quarters in a row, and then I dropped out just because I wasn't going to my classes.
Did your parents know?
No, somehow I thought like I could just pull it off or just like not tell them for a long time, so they didn't find out for like another like year after that.
Holy shit, seriously?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because my mom knew because I was like with her, but my dad, I was only seeing him for lunch every once in a while, so he never.
And your mom didn't tell your dad?
No, they wanted to have like a casual conversation, really.
Yeah. Wow. That's so nutty.
Yeah.
Okay, so you drop out of school, and where are you? Because to me, it seems like this vicious cycle, whichever you want to call it, same thing, that you are now feeling pretty shitty, probably. And so to placate that, was it like that, or was it more like...
It was kind of like that. There's a lot of denial. I'd always tell myself, like, oh, I just gotta, like, pick myself up by my bootstraps tomorrow, and then I'll be back in school by the next quarter. And then tomorrow came, and it was just the same, like, playing video games and hitting the bong with my friends, you know?
Yeah. Were you depressed, or were you just monotasking?
I don't think I was depressed as much as just really lost and unsure of what to do. I was kind of, like, at this, like, turning point in my life where, like, it's like purgatory. Like, I could either, like do something about my life and, like, try and get back into school, or I could just, like, go down the rabbit hole of, like, using a lot of drugs. Yeah. And I chose
the drugs.
That, yeah.
Were you bored?
Yeah, I'd say I was pretty bored. I mean, all I was doing really was, like, working at a restaurant and going home.
The drug culture's pretty intense at a restaurant, too.
Yeah.
All my friends who have worked restaurants, the drug situation's pretty
This was a pretty, like,
mostly
upper end one, so,
yeah.
like, and I was in the front of the house, which I think is a little bit less so. So there's, like, a lot of drinking, but I was definitely the main heavy drug user that I knew of. Like, if other people were using drugs, they're keeping it really hush-hush.
Yeah.
I mean, I was bored, but I wasn't too bored because I was living with one of my best friends, and, like, you know, at least I had someone to talk to and, like, you know, hang out with. But I definitely felt like I wasn't doing what I should be doing with my life, but I didn't really know how to stop that.
How are you feeling about, since your dad didn't know for so long? It must have been weird when you saw him.
It was weird. I mean, I just avoided seeing him very much.
Yeah.
You know, I was pretty much just hiding from the world in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, like, it was already pretty bad, and then I was downtown and somebody offered me some heroin. I was like, oh, I'll try that, because I thought, like, in my mind, no, someone I didn't know, just some random street kid downtown.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was still, like, had all the drugs under control. Like, I was really good at, like, experimenting with them and, like, putting them down again, and, you know, I was still okay. But in reality, I was, like, totally not in control of my using. Just because, like, I could, like, only smoke weed some days didn't mean I was okay.
Right.
So I tried that. I wasn't really good at using it, though.
What do you mean, at the heroin?
Yeah.
Was it in pill form?
No, it's just a black chunk. Like, in the West Coast, it's all black tar heroin. So
what is that? I don't know.
It's just
like a lump, and then you heat it up.
Yeah, you can either smoke it or you can shoot it. I never really got into the shooting thing, but you can just stick it on a piece of tinfoil, hold a lighter underneath it, and like put a straw in your mouth and like it'll suck up the vapor. But I wasn't really sure how that whole thing worked, so I didn't really get it the first time.
Yeah.
So I tried to put it down for a while. But then like a year or so later, like I was having a lot of monetary troubles because I wasn't making very much money at my job. So I ended up having to move out of my apartment. I was feeling really depressed about that.
Where did you end up moving?
Back to my mom's house. And I found some more and tried it again. This time it worked better, and then just kind of turned into an everyday thing, like, before I knew it.
So you're just smoking it?
Yeah.
No, because does it not come in pill form too?
No, heroin doesn't come in pill form.
Okay. I must be thinking of the Oxycontin stuff.
Yeah, that's...
Did you do any of that stuff?
I had dabbled with it, like, in the college days, and...
Yeah.
You know, but... that was never, like, my everyday thing, because I was, like... Nobody had, like, a huge supply of that, so I just, like, try it out when I was around, and then put it down later.
So the first time you smoked the heroin, you're like, oh, well, I'll try this. Somebody's just giving it to me, and what the hell? But the second time... when you did it and it worked out, were you like, oh, it's on? Or did you think, oh, shit, I better not do this again? Did you have, you know what I mean? Did you have that crossroads in your brain where you went, I don't know, this is slippery stuff here?
I mean, I knew I really liked it.
Why did you like it?
It was, I mean, thing about, like, heroin and opiates in general is that it's almost, like, the most, it's like, it really gets down to the heart of, like, what is pleasurable about drugs. Like, you know, weed feels good, but it has, like, you know, the associated, like, paranoia and munchies, and you feel all, like, weird, and like, same thing with, like, acid and cocaine and blah, 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 blah. But heroin is just, like, pure waves of pleasure as soon as you do it. It's just, like, just feels great, you know?
Yeah. But only the first few times, right? Doesn't it wear that euphoria wear off?
I mean, it's never like the first time, but you always feel a lot better after you do it.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, for me, the first time I did it, like, it was just like any other drug. Like, like I said, when I first drank or first smoked weed, it's like, this is awesome. You know, like, I want to do it more. So it didn't seem any different. I didn't realize that it could get a lot worse than that, you know. I didn't really understand what it meant to be, like, into full-blown heroin addiction.
How often were you using?
Oh, I mean, you know, like, there's, like, the honeymoon phase, and then after that, it's, like, every day, all day long, pretty much, because...
You just have to keep smoking it all day?
Yeah, I mean, I was probably... Before I went to rehab, the first time, it's, like, $60 a day was, like, my... average using amount. Yeah.
Did you have a job then?
Yeah.
So
that's why I was working at the restaurant.
So it just went straight into it.
Yeah, like I get my tips. I'd like bug the servers as a busboy. So I'd bug the servers like, hey, can I get my tip today? Can I get my tip today? Because I always needed that money because it's gone immediately. You know, usually they would like take their time and like you like give it to the managers and the managers give it to you later. But I was always on them to get it as fast as possible because I needed it to stay well.
What would happen if you didn't?
Oh, you get sick. You know, you just... It feels kind of like the flu, but like also like with this mental state of total panic and like you just need it and you just feel like your world's going to end if you don't get it as soon as possible.
I'm curious, when you're in that moment and you know, well, you know what's coming, and is there a moment in that where you think, okay, clearly this is not okay now. My body is freaking out. Did any, you know, there's the devil and the angels on your shoulders. Did the angel ever say, holy shit, dude, this is not okay? Or did you just override that every time?
I mean, by the time you're starting to get sick, it's like you realize that, but it's also too late at that point. Because of like, you still have to go to work and you still have to like wake up and face the day and like, you know, you don't want to be sick anymore and like you don't want to keep using heroin and keep going down this road, but you also have to do all these like day-to-day activities and it seems impossible to do without
in the moment.
Yeah,
right?
In the moment. Yeah, I mean, but
because we've all had the flu and we just sort of ride it out and
but there's not like that psychological aspect of it where like, I mean, the thing is addiction like overrides like your like reptilian brain thing where like it starts being like food or water, like you need it for survival, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it seems like. If you don't have it, you're going to die.
Right.
And like you can logically know that's not true, but like your body and your mind are still sending you signals like you need this now constantly.
So were you still able to maintain the secrecy around it, around the people who knew and loved you, or?
I think my mom suspected something was up, but she didn't really know what.
And she didn't ask you? She didn't ask me,
like, are you doing heroin? I don't really know what she was thinking at that time. I think she was really worried, but just didn't know what to do.
Yeah. I think a lot of parents have that conundrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, $60 a day, did it go up from there?
It went up from there if I had the money for it. Like every payday, I would like do more.
So you're slowly upping your addiction, right? Or is it the same addiction? I guess you're just slowly upping your amount. I don't really.
I mean,
know how to put that exactly.
Like, my tolerance is definitely going up, but like, it's like there's the baseline of what I needed. And then there's like what I wanted, which is way up here. Well, it's like never ending pretty much. Like I could just keep going forever. And the baseline never really changed. And then like what I could actually do like varied based on
finances.
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you have friends that were doing it too?
No, it's just me.
Did your friends know you were doing it?
Some of them did.
Were they freaking or no big deal?
Well, I had some friends that were like more like open to drug experimentation like me, so I did it with them a few times, but they never really like got into the habit of doing it all the time.
Sure.
And then my best friend, I forget what triggered it, but I told him eventually because I felt like he had to know, and then he freaked out and didn't know what to do either. Oh, because I got fired from my job at the restaurant because I was like a mess, and like he had also worked there previously, and my coworkers from the restaurant started telling him like, oh, we're worried about Alex. He's like scratching his arm all the time. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week. Blah blah blah. And then he confronted me, and I pretty much told him from there.
What's the arm scratching?
Oh, you just get really itchy when you do opiates.
What about pooping? Did you get to poop ever? Because I know that's a silly question, but yeah. I know it binds people up so bad.
Yeah.
You must have felt like shit.
I mean, I was sick often enough that like, and when you get sick, it's like the dams break loose.
Oh,
so like
okay.
that, like it didn't end up being that big of a problem that time around.
Yeah.
It kind of became a bigger problem like down the road, like way down the road. Like I have a thing of Miralax in that drawer right there from the last time because like that was becoming an issue then.
So you had not yet gone to the rehab the first time, and things are spiraling. You lose your job.
Yep.
Your habit is, how are you paying for your habit if you don't have a job?
I got another job, and I had got unemployment, and I was kind of doing like sketchy stuff for money. Like I started to like, actually I can't remember. I don't think I started stealing from my parents yet at this point, but that came down the road too. But what happened was I ended up pawning my mom's boyfriend's laptop, thinking I was going to get money later that day from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then the money never came, so I couldn't get the laptop back. And then he found out, and then he called my dad, and then that's where it all went to hell. Yeah.
How did he find out that you had pawned the laptop?
Well, they kind of knew I was like getting more into drugs now, and like, because I was like asking my parents for money more often too, and they're like, no, we're not going to give you any more fucking money, Alex.
Yeah.
And so, as soon as he saw I was gone, he messaged me like, where the hell is the laptop? Because he's an accountant, and there's like a whole bunch of client information on there. So I didn't realize that at the time, but that made it like a way bigger deal.
Yeah.
So I told him, and my dad was like, what the hell's going on? Yada, yada, yada. And then I went to rehab eventually because I was like...
Did you want to go to rehab?
First I told him, hell no. I don't need rehab, blah, blah, blah. But then, I forget what happened, but something happened that made me change my mind. I was like, I'm just sick of this. Like, sure, I'll give it a shot. Like, the thought of rehab was just really scary at the time. Like, going away for 4 weeks, like, not being able to leave, like, being stuck with all these other addicts. Like, it was not very appealing to me, but I was like, hey, maybe this is my shot of getting better again.
Yeah. Did you, find camaraderie in the rehab place?
Oh yeah, it was actually in a lot of ways a lot of fun. Like, you know, it was organized into like these little groups where you like, and you have like group therapy with your group and eat with your group and go around the rehab with your group. and that was cool because then you had like an immediate social network right there. And I just remember like going in the first day and like just laughing for the first time in a long time, like really like deep down belly laugh, like free of drugs and like just actually feeling good.
Yeah.
And that was just like a amazing feeling at the time.
Was the detoxing to get to that point must have been heinous.
You know, that first time it wasn't that bad because they gave like medical assistance for you.
Sure, that makes sense.
And I don't think, you know, I hadn't been using for that long, so I don't think my like the detox wasn't as bad as it would be in the future. I don't really remember, like, it was hard to sleep at first, but other than that, I was pretty okay.
Did you start digging into the reasons why then? Or were you still not really into that?
I've never really dug too deeply into the reasons why, other than, I mean, the one thing I think a lot of addicts have in common is that they feel apart from the group as a whole, and they feel like socially uneasy, and drugs make them feel more socially at home with their fellow human. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I don't think why is that important. It's more about like accepting that you are an addict and what are you going to do about that today. Like there's no like secret like that you have buried deep down that like you'll understand, and all of a sudden you won't be an addict anymore because you understand yourself so well. It's more just like changing your behavior and changing the way you think about things and your perspective.
You have to kind of talk your brain out of making certain choices. I mean, do you physically have to say, okay, brain, nope, that's a bad idea? Or is it easier every time?
Once, like, the way that they talk about addiction and treatment is that, like, it's, once you stop doing it, you have a tendency to, like, go back to it, like, try it again, like, down the road. And once you do it, you just keep doing it again and again. But there's like that, once you get off of it, there's like that initial period where it's like not very hard to stay off of it. And you kind of just gotta build on that, I guess. And like for me, like making the right choice isn't about like not like choosing not to do drugs today. Like that's of course like step one, but like it kind of, you build on that and you're like, okay, I'm going to choose to go to a meeting today. Or I'm going to choose to go to like call my sponsor, work on my steps, or I'm going to, you know, even like things like I'm going to choose to clean my room or like go to school or, you know, go to my job, just like making like general right life choices. And then you get farther and farther from that point of relapse, but then you like build from the bottom up, but then you can kind of relapse from the top down and like throw one thing away and another thing away, and all of a sudden you're like back to like where it's just like you having to choose like, I'm not going to do drugs today again.
Yeah. And then it's just an everyday decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after the first trip through rehab, you get out and feeling good, I assume. Everything's kind of back to normal, or?
Yeah. I mean, things weren't back to normal. I still had a lot of wreckage in my life to deal with. Had a lot of debt. Still wasn't in school.
Because you had to pay back school stuff, right? Because you dropped
Yeah,
out.
I didn't do that this time. At this point, I just moved into an Oxford house, which is like a clean living house where like they have a lot of rules and everyone has to be involved in like the governance of the house, and you have meetings and talk about house issues and that kind of thing. Which is a really cool. I love Oxford houses. I think they're awesome, but mine was in the middle of nowhere, and it made it really difficult for this kid with no car to like kind of like do the things he needed to do for his recovery, like go to meetings every day, build a relationship with other, you know, sober people, and I was really isolated.
That's not good.
Yeah. I mean, like I had like my housemates around, but it wasn't enough. Like I was just in this little bubble in the middle of the woods pretty much.
Yeah, I remember that place.
Yeah. So it just wasn't, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but in reality it was not the place for long-term sobriety for me.
Now, had you gone completely sober, or were you still like, oh, heroin is a bad idea?
Oh, no, that was like something they made immediately clear at rehab, is that you can't, like, a drug is a drug is a drug. Like, I went in thinking like, oh, I'll go back to like smoking weed casually like I did back when I was 15, but they like, no, you can't do that. You just have to.
Just nothing.
Yeah, because your brain can't really tell the difference when it really gets down to it. Like if you're smoking heroin or smoking weed, like it's still gonna like cause that dopamine imbalance in your brain, and when you're in recovery, like you need time for your brain to go back to normal. And they have this phrase, it's like you can't unpickle a pickle. Like once you're a pickle, you're always a pickle. You can't turn it back into a cucumber.
That's an interesting phrase.
Yeah.
Personally, I love pickles.
Yeah, but the point is like once you're an addict, you can't go back to being not an addict.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
yeah,
it's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah. So yeah, like they really drilled into my mind that you had to be completely clean and sober.
Okay, so you're out and you're sober, you're doing your steps, except for you're kind of off in Timbuktu trying to do it. Is that where did you fall down again? How long, too?
I made it about 4 months-ish, a little bit less, I think, like 3.5 months. And
were you still in the house?
Yeah. And I was in Seattle though, like coming back and visiting a friend or something like that. And I feel like I could tell I was feeling a little weird when I was waiting for the bus. I was like in the neighborhood where I used to like run and gun, I knew I could find stuff. I was like, I had this great idea, like I'm gonna take a look around the block and see if like anybody's around, and then sure enough someone was. And like I was like, oh, but I'm just gonna see if they're there. I'm not gonna do anything. And but they saw me and they're like, hey man, you need anything? And immediately I was like, okay, yes I do. And it's just like a split-second decision, and then.
Do you think so? Even being in that neighborhood, that was a choice too, right? You didn't have to be in that neighborhood. It's
a choice, but I mean, even nowadays, I still have to go to that neighborhood because it's downtown Seattle, and sometimes like that's where I need to catch a bus.
Yeah.
But it's definitely. It's a choice to like seek out drug dealers, pretty much.
Were you ever scared?
Yeah, there's some situations where I was scared to be in for sure.
Like, can you tell one or?
There's just times like when I was buying drugs from somebody and they'd take me up to their like apartment or something, then leave the apartment and come back with the drugs. It's like, are they gonna come back with like a baseball bat and like smash my head in and take all my money or something like that? So there's definitely risky situations I put myself in. Like, you're not around very, wholesome people.
Yeah. Did you ever end up shooting up?
I did two, maybe 3 times. But it was not.
Just something. Picturing that. Sorry, it's thinking my shoulders go up.
I never didn't seem like that much more amazing than smoking it, and it was a lot more of a pain in the ass. So I just never got super into it.
Yeah. That must have been a surreal moment the first time you did that.
It was kind of. It was like, oh, this is like the last like check to mark or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like a full-blown junkie now. But thankfully it never became like a
thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, you are in the old neighborhood and you've made the decision. Then what?
Well, see, the thing is, like, before every relapse, like, you always tell yourself the same lie, like, oh, it's just going to be one time, just to try it out.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you do it, you're like, okay, when's the next time going to be?
Were you immediately pulled back in?
Well, first I was just, like, enjoying the high, but also feeling really guilty, and, like, also kind of, like, had this adrenaline rushing through me, because, like, oh my god, I just relapsed, like, what's going to happen now? So, like, when you're, like, first take the drug for the first time again, like, you're just feeling all crazy, and it's not like you're pulled back in, but then the next day is, like, it's like you can feel your brain chemistry has changed, and you're back to, like, craving that drug all the time.
Yeah. So how long were you using until the second time in rehab?
Let's see. I'd say, like, 4.5 months. I went to a detox.
How bad was the habit that you'd worked up to the second time?
I mean, it gets worse every time. I'd moved up to like probably about a gram a day, which is like $80. I was doing like benzodiazepines with it too.
I don't know what that is.
Like Xanax, Valium, that kind of thing.
So those are all downers, are they not? Or opioids? And...
Yeah, they're both downers, and like that's an easy way to overdose too. But they potentiate each other, so it like made the high stronger, which is why I liked it.
Yeah. Did any part of you think, oh my god, I could overdose, or did that not even occur to you?
I thought I was protected by the fact that I was smoking and not shooting up, which wasn't true. But I never had a situation. I never had any close calls where I felt like I was about to overdose.
Is it weird to talk about this stuff? Does it put a craving, or are you in a place now where you're like, oh, I could talk about this. It's not a big deal.
I mean, this is a story I've told so many times that like it's kind of like
no big deal.
Lost its luster with the telling, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
You have to talk about this in like treatment and stuff. So
yeah. Okay, so up to $80 a day habit. That seems like a lot. It seems very expensive.
Yeah.
And did you have a job again?
Yeah, I had a really good job this time where I was making like, well, not like an amazing job, but for me a really good job. I was making like, my paychecks were like $1,500 every 2 weeks, so it's almost enough to like make it work. But then of course my job performance suffered, so they cut my hours. So then I wasn't making as much money. So then I was like, I stole a lot of money from my mom and my mom's boyfriend, and they were like, okay, we're borderline gonna kick you out of the house. So then that's when I called Dad again and was like, so I relapsed. They were like, yeah, we kind of figured. And then I went to detox at the hospital and got clean again.
How was that detox?
It was definitely shittier.
No pun intended.
Well, yeah, no, it was horrible in every way. I mean, hospital food is even worse than rehab food, which I did not think was possible. There's less stuff to do. But
did people treat you differently? I mean, were you being marginalized at all because of being an addict, or do you think that people still were compassionate and...
You mean like by the hospital staff?
Yeah, by staff, even by family, just in general.
I think people... I don't think anyone treated me badly. I think... like my world was so small at that time that I was pretty much just interacting like with my best friend, my parents, and then that's pretty much it. That's the whole social circle there. Yeah. My best friend was kind of getting fed up at that point with me a little bit, but he would still hang out with me and would still treat me like a human being.
Sure.
My parents were getting fed up too, but it was like the same situation pretty much.
They love you and want you to get better.
Yeah.
So did there any different kind of epiphany happen in the second rehab stint, or was it all just sort of the same?
It wasn't a rehab, it's just a detox. So I was only there for 5 days.
Oh, okay.
And then...
Okay, so wait. So in a rehab, they're actually saying, let's get you off the drug and then talk about
it's a lot more
your
like,
feelings and all that stuff.
It's like a lot of like therapy and education about drugs and recovery and what to do.
And then the detox is
just
get
to
it
get
out
you,
of your body.
Yeah, exactly. I did like outpatient after that. But I mean, my opinion, treatment is extremely repetitive. Like if you do it once, then it's already repetitive, and if you do it twice, it's repetitive as fuck. I mean, it's good information and stuff I needed to like hear again and think about, but I think what was different the second time was that I got way more plugged into Narcotics Anonymous and like would go to the same meetings every week and like actually see like the same people again, and like I felt like I belonged in that community a lot more the second time around. Was
it easier to be around people that... I mean, it's one thing with people who love you and say, we're here for you, but they don't quite... there's that, how you don't really understand, and then you go someplace like NA, and suddenly you're in a room full of people that are like, you think that's bad? I fucked a chicken, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, that's like a huge appeal of it. I remember like, there's somebody like a newcomer coming to this meeting for the first time. He was crying about something he did, like he like ripped his best friend off or something like that. And then after that, like everyone would be like, hey man, I did the same thing, it's all good. It's like not just that I did the same thing, but like now look where I am because I did this, this, and this. Now I have a life, and now I'm like, happy, I'm fulfilled, I have this inner peace, and that's what you need to see when you're a freshly clean addict. You need to see like the light at the end of the tunnel.
Sure.
And not only that, but then they'll also be like, this is how you get there. Like, let me show you the way too. I mean, that's what Narcotics Anonymous is all built around, which is why it's super cool.
Well, it's interesting too because as we started talking, you said one of the things about addiction or even using, maybe not even addiction, but just using in general, is that you feel like a fish out of water and you're just trying to jump in the pool with all the other fishes, and you're like, this is weird, I'm weird, everything's weird, and so you do the drug and suddenly you get along, and now there's an NA that is all these fish out of water and you make your own pond. I mean,
yeah. And it teaches you...
I killed that metaphor, by the way.
No, I mean, that's pretty... You got it right.
Or I drowned it.
That's, like, NA, like... I'm trying to remember, like... They have these readings at the beginning of every meeting that you always read, and there's, one... Oh, no, never mind. Sorry. Forget what I just said. Edit that out later.
We need the producer.
But I mean, that's what NA is.
Why? Like, what is it? Just you don't remember how it goes, or you don't want?
I realized I was gonna start talking about AA, and that's just a different.
That's a whole nother vibe.
Yeah. Wait. Maybe it was NA. I don't know. Okay. Edit this in.
Producer.
It's like they have this thing where they say like we stood at the turning point. We couldn't live without drugs, and we couldn't live with drugs. And that's like kind of what you're like after you stop doing the drugs, but you haven't dove into the 12-step program. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's really hard to stay clean without some sort of program, because you use drugs to solve this problem you had in life, like the feeling of social isolation, the feeling of like worthlessness, no self-esteem, blah, 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 whatever. And you stop doing the drugs and you have all these problems again. And not only that, but they're worse because you made your life hell because you use drugs and you have to deal with all these problems. So you need something to replace it. And that's what the Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step program does for you.
Yeah, but you really like NA?
Yeah, I mean, I like NA because it's focused on addiction. It's not substance specific. Like you can be addicted to alcohol and be welcome at NA. You could be addicted to cocaine, heroin, pills, whatever, weed. It's just about the disease of addiction, not about any one drug or substance.
So sex, anything. I mean, you can be addicted to anything, really, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen any like addicted to like certain behavior kind of people there, but I think they would be welcome, at least at the groups I attend.
Yeah. Okay, so how long was that sobriety?
That was 21 months.
Then what happens?
It was kind of similar to what happened the first time. It's just like kind of grew disconnected. Like I did the study abroad in Japan for 3 months, and then when I came back, I didn't call my sponsor or go to any of the same meetings.
Did you do sponsorship while you were in Japan? Do they have stuff like that?
I mean, they do, but I thought I would just stick with the same sponsor I had here.
Okay.
I went to meetings when I was in Japan, but not like a whole bunch of them. And I just like got really busy in my life, and I kind of felt like I wasn't worried about relapsing anymore. I didn't have time for the program anymore, and slowly, like, I said this to my dad like a couple months ago. It's like recovery is like a battery. You charge it up over time by doing things like service work and working your steps, talking to your sponsor, fellowshipping with other addicts, and your like battery gets a more and more charge. And then if you stop doing that stuff, you'll stay clean based on like the charge of your battery, but eventually it's gonna go to zero, and then you're in a huge danger of relapsing. And I think what happened was like I stopped doing all the stuff, but I could like, I'm still staying clean, so obviously I'm doing okay. But eventually, like I ran out of goodwill and then was screwed.
What was that turning point then?
It's like the most silly thing is my mouth was really hurting. I was having issues with my wisdom teeth. And I was like, it was like a couple days of pain. I was taking ibuprofen. I'm like, screw this. I'm gonna I want to do like a opiate and get rid of this pain for sure. And I found some Percocet, and I did that. Mm-hmm. And again, I had that same thought I had the last time. It'll just be like this one time. Hell no, it wasn't just one time. It was, as soon as I did it that one time, it was every day after that. Until,
with Percocet, or did you go back to heroin?
Well, I started out with Percocet, and that ran out. And then I went to heroin after that.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, I can't stop now. I have to study for my midterm, or like, I have to go to work. And,
so you were back in school again.
Yeah. Like my life is built up like tremendously, and I was really successful in doing well in all my crap, but I didn't really have that like kind of like inner peace anymore.
Where do you think it went?
I think just dissipated from a lack of like
nurturing.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what NA was giving me, was like, it's not about like what you have or like what you do. It's just about your relationship with yourself. And I wasn't really focused on that anymore. I was focused on external stuff. And I mean, I'm thankful for the relapse, because it taught me that like external stuff doesn't matter at all if you're not like okay with yourself.
I think that's true in everything, right?
Right, but most people just kind of like
cruise.
Yeah, and they like, they cope with that feeling of emptiness in other ways, but an addict will go back to the heroin or the crack or whatever their drug choice is.
Did you, when you started using again for the third time, how did that all go down to end up back in treatment?
Well, my big plan was to just get clean on my own and go back to NA. I had this trip planned with my friend to go to San Francisco for a week, and I was like, I'll get out of town, have no responsibilities, I'll detox then. And that actually worked perfectly, except that my parents found a bunch of like paraphernalia in my room while I was gone, and then they told me, what's the deal? And I said, first I tried to play it off like, oh yeah, I used like once or twice. Like, well, we found a lot more than just once or twice worth.
Yeah. So
then they like told me they weren't going to let me come back to the house. Like, they took me to a hotel room when I came back from the airport, and like I had to go get a drug assessment after that. I thought I was going to have to go back to inpatient, which I really didn't want to do because I was about to start school again. Like the next quarter was coming up. I was going to have to like probably quit my job if I had to do that. And I had this plan to go to Japan to like see my girlfriend at the time, and I didn't want to jeopardize that. So luckily we reached an agreement to just do outpatient, because I had already detoxed myself.
Was that hard?
It was pretty hard, but like at this point I knew I could do it. Like I didn't have anything else to worry about besides just getting through it, and because of that I could do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some days...
Was it cold turkey, or did you wean yourself?
It was cold turkey. I had gotten some like comfort medication, like something similar to like Valium, that like kind of helped me sleep and made me feel a little bit better for the first couple days.
Sure.
When I was down there, I started to go to meetings to try and like help me like kind of like get plugged in again.
Did you tell your friend that you were with that you were doing it?
He found out the night before, because I was like kind of going really hard with like a, like a last hurrah, and I was like really obviously really high and like going into the bathroom and like smoking heroin in his apartment. So he confronted me about it, and I was like, sorry man, I'm gonna get clean on this chip. And he's like, well, okay, I mean, I didn't really want to babysit you while you're getting clean and going through withdrawals, but whatever. So it's kind of weird, but I mean, I'm glad I did it, because now I'm clean again, so.
Yeah. And how long has it been?
106 days.
Congratulations. How are you feeling about it all?
I mean, wish I didn't do it. On the one hand, like I always think like, oh man, I'd have like over 2 years now if I didn't relapse, but I'm thankful for and I'm thankful for the lessons I did learn because of it, and I feel like I'm in a stronger place in my recovery now than I was then. But you know, it's like hard to be proud of my time when like I know like when it's just not doesn't seem like that much anymore to me, you know, like now that I've like had a lot of time clean, like it's a little embarrassing still. Like there's certain meetings I haven't gone back to because I don't want to tell them I relapsed, which is silly.
That's interesting to me because I imagine every single person in that room is also probably relapsed.
Yeah, you'd be surprised that there's a lot that have never relapsed.
Really?
Yeah.
Statistically, though, it's pretty common, is it not?
It is common, but I mean, there's
always those exceptions.
Yeah, and there's so many people in the world that it's like, even if only 0.1% never relapse, that's still like, you know, thousands of people in, you know, any given area or whatever.
Did you ever get entangled with the law enforcement during any of this?
No, I got really lucky because of that. The only people I stole from were like close loved ones, which is really fucked up, but I think helped me stay out of trouble with the law. And I always I think I always looked more put together than like a lot of the like street junkies,
yeah.
quote unquote. So I don't think the police like really were paying as much attention to me,
Sure.
but also it's just a lot of luck.
Yeah. So you feel like you found that center now?
Yeah. You know, like right now it's kind of like a weird time because a lot of stuff has happened in my life recently, but like I've never like doubted my commitment to stay clean this time around. Like whatever else is going on in my life, like I know that I have to stay clean. And like this before I relapsed, like that was that 21-month stretch of clean time I had was like really showed me like what I was kind of like, it gave me a hint of what I was capable of, and I knew like I wanted more of that and not more of the drug use because I knew exactly where that would head. I didn't want to be there anymore. So I mean I'm just really thankful I got another chance and I don't want to screw it up.
Yeah, but still it's one day, right? Every day.
Yep.
Yeah. But there's a lot of philosophers who are all about the be here now. So if you can be in the moment, we're never in the future, right? We're never in the past again.
Yep.
So all you have is exactly what's transpiring here. That's perhaps a more calming way to...
Yeah, I mean, I think the one day at a time thing is like, it's very like encouraging, inspirational for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I just make the right choice right now, then tomorrow will take care of itself. It's like no matter like what problems or obstacles I might have down the road, like I just have to keep doing the right thing today and it'll all be okay. It makes it really simple and yeah, it works.
Have you had any struggles with it at all? Are you doing pretty well with it?
I haven't had any temptation to use since this time around. Like that's kind of like the thing that makes me nervous about myself though, is that like I'm the kind of person that can go a really long time without using, with no trouble at all, and then all of a sudden like last time it changes. So like even though things are going like well right now, I'm trying to like make sure I still do what I can to make sure it stays that way.
So going to your meetings and you quit smoking. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it feels good. Mostly, I mean, cigarette cravings take a long time to go away in my experience.
Yeah.
But they'll go away whether you smoke or if you don't smoke, so you might as well just not smoke.
Yeah. Do you feel better not having...
Yeah. Like that's the easy thing to forget when you like after you've quit smoking for a while. It's like how shitty you feel all the time when you smoke. Like you can never breathe well. You're coughing all the time. Like you like are always stuck between like wanting another cigarette but not wanting another cigarette. And being free from that is like amazing.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
It's awesome. So, being here now, one day at a time. You're doing kick-ass, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, like, my imagination isn't so good that, like, I can think of like every possibility that awaits me in the future. So like if I just keep doing the best thing for me, like maybe what I want to happen won't happen, but maybe something better than that I can't even picture right now will. So I,
Sure.
it kind of goes into the like trusting a higher power thing. Like I don't really believe in a supernatural God, but like I have faith that things will work out if I keep doing things like what's supposed to happen will happen if I keep doing the right thing today.
Yeah, every day is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Any
Anytime.
last parting wisdoms to anyone who might be struggling?
If you're struggling, then you should look online for Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings in your area. Pick up a schedule. Call the hotline. Every major area in the country has a 24-hour hotline that they will help you get to a meeting and figure out what the next thing to do is. There's, as long as you're alive, there's still hope.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody.